You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowing like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the first part of What If Deku Enters Pacific Rim. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of HanBaron on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Just another bad day for Izukumidoriya. First having to deal with bullies and then almost getting crushed by a villain rampaging through the streets. "Hey mister, are you okay?" Izuku asks as he helps up a star-headed man who had been knocked over. The man thanks him before saying they needed to put some distance between themselves and the villain. They both get away before feeling the rumble of an earthquake. It started small enough but quickly shook the whole town. Even the villain stopped her rampage. When Izuku arrived home, he checked in with his mother. "Any damage here at home, Mom?" Inko smiled before saying, "Just a bit. We'll have to pick up some new plates and cups after that earthquake. For now, how about we go out and get some dinner?" Izuku knows his mom is just covering up a bit, but he goes along with it for the time being. They head for the shopping center near them to enjoy a nice meal someone else made. Suddenly, the ground starts to rumble more and more. At first most think it is just another earthquake. But a few people notice something strange. The rumbling is in a rhythm. Like the steps of something large. From the ocean, a massive beast with 6 legs bursts up. It has large insect-like mandibles on its head and sturdy axe-like horn above the glowing blue eyes. This is the Kaiju Dynadas. Suddenly 2 more beasts rise up from the sea. The first is an ape-like beast with heavy horns on its head. The Kaiju Wrecker. The second is a thinner monster, appearing more like a weasel or similar creature. The Kaiju Guma. All 3 wreck a series of ships docked in Mustafa harbor before coming up on the docks and stomping through the city. A few heroes try to stop or distract the beast. But it only leads to their deaths. Suddenly a new sound rings out from the ocean. A loud whirring noise is heard. Something new arises from the ocean. A machine of massive proportions, with solid shoulders and sleek lines along the body. In the center is a glowing reactor, and the arms not only have what appear to be deployable shields but other attachments. This is Gypsy Breaker. From the head, the con pod, the 2 pilots are seen. The first on the left side is a woman with black hair and an olive tan complexion and fierce brown eyes. Damini Sharma. Her partner is a man with pale green eyes, chocolate brown hair and a tanned complexion. Jason Tamir Walker. "Alright Dami. We followed these guys all this way. Let's stop them," Jason says before both slam their hands together. Gypsy meanwhile mirror this action and a few of the kaiju turn toward them. The first kaiju that attempts to engage is Wrecker. It roars and stomps before going down on all 4s to charge at the machine. Gypsy charges forward as well, coming out of the ocean. Right as the 2 are about to meet, Gypsy dodges to the side, barely avoiding the horns of the kaiju. Right as it is going by, Gypsy grabs for one of the horns before reaching for the other. And with all the mechanized strength it can muster, Gypsy yanks Wrecker's head to the side and smashes it into the side of a building. Without letting go of the horns, Gypsy starts to lay into Wrecker's head with as strong of punches as possible. Before firing the jets in the legs to launch the mechanized knee into the mouth of the beast. The hit breaks Wrecker's jaw and teeth, making it recoil. It then shoves to the side before escaping Gypsy's grasp. Wrecker then backhand punches the machine's stomach, and follows up with another hit. It then gets under Gypsy with its horns and throw it over and behind itself. Gypsy crashes through the docks before slowing itself. just about stepping into the breakwater. The machine shakes its head, as do the pilots inside. I don't think we can keep doing this, Jason. We don't have a choice. Domini says as they get up. Jason just sighs before agreeing. We'll finish him on the next charge. With that said, the two head toward a construction site to position themselves. Wrecker roars again before stomping and pawing the ground with its back feet. It charges forward again, and Gypsy stands ready. This time with something else planned. Right as Wrecker gets close, a pair of energy blades jut out from Gypsy's arms. The first strike cleaves the beast's horns off, making it roar in shock. Gypsy then stabs the beast in the chest before cutting at its neck. As they feel it convulse a bit, the two pilots breathe a sigh of relief. Before pushing it off. With the creature on the ground, Domini takes this time to catch her breath and decouple. What are you doing? Jason asks worriedly. The woman just says, you may be able to drift for long periods. But I need to rest. We've been at this for almost 12 hours. Suddenly though, Wrecker's body lets out one last convulsion and strikes Gypsy in the chest, knocking it into the building under construction. Inside the con pod, the pilots are knocked around. Damani gets it the worst. Jason shouts for her before having the AI decouple him as well. He checks on her and can tell she has a broken arm and leg. Let alone a probable concussion and broken ribs. Damn it, this is why I didn't want you to decouple. With there still being two kaiju out there, Jason is tempted to solo drift if necessary. I would strongly advise against that. I will scan for possible drift-compatible people in the area. The AI Samudi says. It takes a few minutes, but he eventually finds a candidate. And gives Jason the location. Outlining Izukumidoriya. What about some of the others nearby? Surely they are compatible. Jason asks while preparing to move Domini. Samudi simply reports that all others nearby have some sort of damage to their minds. They are all useless for what we need. That boy is the only compatible person. In many ways he is the most important person to the survival of this world. Jason just sighs before picking Domini up and heading out the back of Gypsy's head. He heads down and a few heroes are currently swarming. Backdraft and Death Arms are first with him, the lady coming behind them. Jason signals Backdraft to take Domini to hospital before saying he needs to find someone. Not so fast, pal. You need to answer some questions, Death Arms says before putting a hand on his shoulder. Jason just rolls his eyes before saying, I don't have time for this. He then grabs Death Arms' hand before twisting it. He then stomps on his knee, and then grabs the man's face. And the head butts the man as hard as possible in the nose, breaking it. He then follows up with another hit to the face. This time from Jason's knee. Before breaking both of Death Arms' arms. And smashing his face into the concrete. Empty Lady then uses her quirk to try and restrain Jason. But he dodges the hand before running up her arm to her face. Once there he grabs her eyelid and double kicks her in the eye, making her jolt and end up punching herself in the face. She starts to shrink down, and when she's at about half her max height, Jason breaks her arm and a leg. Keep you useless idiots out of my way. He then runs off to find Izuku, who was running with his mother away from the stomping and trying to find a shelter. Suddenly, Jason appeared before them. Wait, please. I need your help. Or rather, I need the kids' help. Jason said with a panicked tone. Inko put herself between the man and her son before asking what he wanted. Jason said he needed Izuku's help to save everyone, but Inko didn't believe him. While Izuku was just wondering what the man could mean by him saving everyone. Jason just let out a sigh before pulling a gun from the holster behind his back. I'm sorry. But I can't just ask. If he doesn't help me, this world is doomed. While Inko is panicking about a gun being pointed at her, she freezes long enough for Jason to run in and knock Izuku out. I'll take him to the hospital later, but right now I have to try and save everyone. Jason says before running back toward Gypsy. When he gets there, the police and a few more heroes are swarming. And when they see the man, they attempt to engage. Until they see he has a hostage. Just move out of the way for now. If you want to live, then you need to let me through. Jason says before walking through the barricade. With his gun pointed at Izuku. A few heroes want to engage and are tempted to inside the construction site. Though two of them end up shot because, as Jason says, you guys really are stupid and useless. I could tell what you were going to do that from the start. He then shoots the two heroes in the legs to keep them from following him and loads up into Gypsy Breaker. Inside, he uses some smelling salts to wake up the boy. Sorry about the rough intro, kid, but we need to get moving. Samudi. We'll have to rush through a few things. Agreed. There is little time. Samudi says before bringing down a new set of apparatuses for the pilots. Jason hands Izuku a suit in roughly his size and tells the boy to change. While Izuku is freaking out about all of this, he knows he has to comply for now. At least until the heroes can break me out of here. Izuku thinks while changing. Jason has his back turned for the boy's comfort but does warn him not to try and run. When Izuku is suited up, he asks what happens next. Now, well, this will probably feel weird, kid, but it'll make sense soon. Jason quips with a smirk. He settles into the apparatus, and gestures for Izuku to do the same. The boy complies and Samudi locks the two into position. Pilot-to-pilot interface commencing. Preparing for neural handshake. Samudi says. Jason quickly warns Izuku not to chase the rabbit. Random access brain impulse triggers. Don't get caught up in what you are about to see. Focus on the here and now. Jason says before the neural handshake engages. Suddenly Izuku's mind is filled with images. Of scores of kaiju invading another Earth. Of this man living in Australia, before it was lost. Surviving while fighting not just smaller kaiju, but even his fellow man. And the man eventually making his way out and finding his way into the organization that make these machine. The Jaegers and Rangers of the Pan-Pacific Defense Corps. While Jason's mind is filled with the pain Izuku has had to deal with at being a genetic outcast. All because of something as useless and pointless as a quirk. At least to his eyes. No wonder these idiots were of no help. You're the only one still human. Kid, focus on the moment. Izuku hears the man and has to work to get in sync. It takes a minute, but Izuku manages to quiet his mind. He pants a bit before telling the older ranger he was fine. Jason nods before telling Samudi to start up the muscle strands. Outside, Gypsy starts to move again. With the techs in the building who were trying to crack the Jaeger running away as it started to move. All right, Izuku. This is for real. You know what's at stake. Jason says before the two roll their shoulders, with Gypsy mirroring the action. Izuku nods before breathing deep. And the two head out to search for the other kaiju. While the heroes are mostly useless in stopping the monsters, some of them manage to distract the kaiju long enough for Gypsy to catch up. Namely Best Jeanist. With his industrial fiber cables, he was able to slow Guma for a minute. While others worked to try and stop Dynadas. To less success. Unless you count being eaten and crushed by the beast as slowing it. Gypsy then arrives, and the two kaiju take notice it. Finally turning from their march toward Fuji. Dynadas goes in first with a roar and swiping at Gypsy with its claws. Jason tells Izuku to follow his lead before they start to dodge the creature's strikes. After the third swipe, they throw a hard right into the joint of the monster's leg. Elbow rocket. Jason calls out, and the two use a rocket-propelled left uppercut to the creature's jaw. Guma has twisted off the bindings Jeanist had put on it and tries to strike at Gypsy. But Jason's instincts are too good, and the pair catch the beast's mouth and swing it around. Using its body to strike Dynadas a few times. But then Dynadas, ducks under and gets a hit in on the midsection of Gypsy, loosening up the grip on Guma. And the weasel-like Kaiju then tries to wrap itself around the Jaeger. And Dynadas attacks a few more times, attempting to cut off a limb. The Ranger and Ranger in training recover though, and Jason manages to catch both the head of Guma and one of Dynadas's claws. Use the coolant on Guma. Right side. I'll focus on holding it in place, Jason shouts. Izuku then pushes a few commands, and the reactor coolant is vented, freezing Guma's upper body. Then with what could be akin to a flex, Gypsy snaps the upper half of the Kaiju off. They then turn their attention to Dynadas. But the insect-like Kaiju still has an extra set of arms. Izuku then says he has an idea, which Jason can see too. The two then come forward and bear hug the creature, before venting the reactor core and blasting the center of the beast with the nuclear energy. They then draw the blades and cut off the arms. And then the beast falls. Pretty sure it's dead. But we should check for a pulse, Jason says. Izuku agrees and sees what the man has in mind. The left hand then turns into a plasma coil, and they shoot into the monster 6 times. When it bursts and flames up a bit, Jason quips, "Yeah, no pulse." Izuku smiles and they head back toward the construction site so they can unload. Once there, and distinct from one another, Izuku falls down with Jason catching him. "Easy kid. Come on. Let's get you out of here," Jason says before opening the back, with police swarming the opening. He asks them to wait a minute before handing Izuku off to some emergency personnel. He then puts his hands up with a roll of his eyes as they arrest him. They take him to a building for the Public Heroes Safety Commission. There the current president starts to ask a few questions. Jason first asks if Domini is alright and tells them he'll only talk with a few of the military and government heads. "That, and I'll need the earpiece you took from me. It has information on it to tell you what is going on." The commissioner is annoyed, but at least agrees to this. When all the people have gathered, including All Might being in attendance, Jason can begin his tale about the monsters that had started to invade their world. How for 10 years Rangers had fought, and some died trying to stop the creatures from the invasion and destruction. How the pair of Raleigh Beckett and Mako Mori had managed to give them a respite and win the first war. Then the uprising attacks and the reopening of the breaches. And then losing Australia to the Kaiju. And then Jason's story of joining up with the PPDC, working with Domini, and the two being part of a major Operation Pentecost set up to invade and stop the precursors' factories and invasions. We had been fighting for a long time, with 20 Jaegers being a part of the mission. By what we though was the end of the fight, only 8 of us were still standing, Jason reported. The commissioner, hero, military heads, and government leaders were all shocked and stunned by what they had heard. But then a series of portals started to open. The precursors were opening ways to other worlds, and trying to launch Kaiju into them. 10 portals opened, but we managed to stop most, and some of the Kaiju were destroyed upon portals closing. But an 11th one opened up toward your world. The rest of the Jaegers had to retreat, and we had set more charges. But Domini and I saw that those 3 were sent your way. So we put everything into making sure we could stop the Kaiju and save another world. And that's how we ended up here. Jason finishes his story before leaning back. All Might then goes over and removes the HNDCFFS on Jason. There's definitely no reason for those. You are a true hero, and one who is here to protect us, All Might says before saluting Jason. The ranger nods and asks if the others have questions. Why did you kidnap the boy? The general of the JSDF asks. Jason uses the AI embedded in his earpiece to show the scan results that Samudi had compiled. To properly operate a Jaeger, you need 2 pilots to share the neural load. And all of the people nearby were completely worthless. None of them had the capability to handle the drift without the possibility of their brains turning into oatmeal. When asked why that was, Samudi put forth its own opinion. From what we gathered from Izuku's drift with Jason, I believe it may have to do with those useless mutations of yours. I believe they are destroying your minds. This shocks everyone, and then Samudi shows more of the results. From what was shown, every person with a quirk had about 1/3 or less neurons in their brains compared to Izuku, Jason, and Damini. Meaning if you wanted to drift, it would take at minimum 6 to 8 people with quirks to do what a more human person can. Samudi finishes his report. At hearing this, all of the people witnessing are shocked. And then terrified when Jason reports that the fight may still be coming for them. This is just the beginning. We may not have eliminated all of them in our attack. At best, we might have slowed their invasion. And they will be coming for this and other worlds again. Jason says. Samudi then creates copies of the ways to create Jaegers, and Jason says they need to start building. Because a new Kaiju war had begun on their Earth. We got ourselves into quite a mess, huh? Damini said a few days after the Kaiju invasion. Jason just snorts before agreeing with his partner. They were in Jaku Hospital, where Damini had been treated for her injuries. Jason then sighs before saying, I guess it makes sense on why they might want to come to this world. With so many weaker brains thanks to those quirks, it would be easier to take over. His partner nods, noting that if the two of them hadn't shown up then they could have easily destroyed the world. I doubt they have anyone with the same level of crazy that is equal to yours. I mean, while you were in the black, you climbed up the side of a kaiju to try and kill it. Damini quips with a smirk his direction. Which Jason returns with a flat look. And before he can retort, she also mentions his other slightly suicidal attacks on the kaiju in the black. Jumping into one's mouth to fire a rocket into its stomach, trying to trick two kaiju into fighting one another. Or my favorite, the time you snuck into one of the beast's ears, or the approximation of them, and dumped a bunch of grenades and other explosives down it to blow it up from the inside. Okay, can you stop making fun of my mental state so can we focus on other matters? Jason says while facepalming. His partner just gives him a joking fine before asking about what the people of this world were doing with the information he gave them. They sent a lot of the designs to this island place. Guess it's a research island of some kind. And well, they've put out a bit of a call to anyone who is quirkless. Or rather still human. This makes the woman hum before wondering what started these odd mutations and the decline of humanity of this world. Questioning if the precursors had something to do with it. I wouldn't put it past them, but I don't think so. This seems like something else. Maybe a mutating virus of some kind. Not really mine or your department. Jason says with a smile. Damini returns it as the nurse walks in. She tells Jason that visiting hours are about to end, so Jason tells his partner to get well soon. I'm gonna need you out there. We'll see. It might be a bit with all the bones I broke. Take care of yourself, Jason. With her partner gone though, Dami instead thinks inward a bit at maybe not getting back into the fight right away. Especially with what the nurse and doctor tell her some of her test results come back with. While Jason was checking in on his partner, Izuku was dealing with a new set of issues. First was that he kept seeing dreams and memories that didn't make sense for what he knew. And he couldn't make sense of most of it. Second, it was publicized that he was one of the ones who stopped the monsters rampaging in the city. His classmates at Aldera were all amazed that he had somehow become a national, and later worldwide, hero overnight. This of course infuriated Bakugou, who tried to brag up that he'd nuke the next monster himself. Good luck with that, Kachin. Because you'd need at least 5 nukes to take out some of those beasts. And how would you know, Deku? You were just sitting in some silly cockpit. Like those old mech anime or whatever. Before either could continue on with their discussions or arguments, their teacher arrived. But he had something different to tell Izuku. Midoriya. There are a few people here to see you in the principal's office. Izuku is confused, but he goes off anyway. When he arrives, his mother and the principal are there. As well as the head of the Hero Commission, Best Genist, Power Loader, Nizu and a general of the military. He gulps and isn't sure what to ask first. So instead, Genus steps forward and places a calming hand on the young man's shoulder. Calm down, young one. We will explain as much as we can. The general of the military steps forward first and explains some of the situation for him. And that they were hoping that Izuku would still be willing to help the nation going forward. Are you sure? I mean, I know that I have the compatibility and everything, but I can understand your reluctance, young man. But the fact is that you are one of the only ones who have experience. In more than one way, if what Walker told us is true. Izuku gives the head of the Hero Commission a questioning look and asks what he meant. Power Loader scratches his head as he walks up to Izuku. And then swings at the boy with his clawed hands. While Izuku internally is freaking out, his body reacts differently. He slides past the swing before grabbing the hero's wrist in his right hand. He then quickly lashes out with his left and smacks Power Loader in the chin, stunning the man. The boy then stomps the support hero's knee before twisting his arm behind the orange-haired man's back, and then stomping at the shoulder to try and dislocate it. While Power Loader doesn't scream out loud, his cry and grunts of pain snap Izuku out of the reflexes he somehow had. Izuku then quickly backs away while looking at his hands and freaking out about how he did all of that. Inko is much the same, but she passed out after watching her son smack down a pro hero. The others in the room though are impressed by the young man's newly acquired reflexes. With Genist at the ready to try and restrain the young man if his impulses made him want to attack the rest. How? You shared minds with Walker, right? That man has been fighting for a few years already. And that means you've gained his skills in combat, reflexes, and impulses to a point. Inko had been awakened as was worried about what they would be putting her son into. Are you asking him to fight more of those monsters? Unfortunately, we may not have a choice. If what that Samudi AI said is true, then our fates rest on them and them alone. The general says while looking down in anger as his own weakness. He then goes on to say that a few in the military would be added to their ranks. But as we said, young Midoriya has experience with drifting. He's already become something of a hero, for a few reasons. And now we need him more than ever. Nizu says before apologizing to Inko, noting that they would prefer not laying everything on the boy's shoulders. But they have no choice for the moment. Power Loader recovers enough to bring up the next point. Right now, we've got some baseline technology set up at Island. As well as that machine. Gypsy Breaker. We were planning to take him and a bunch of the others who have drift compatibility there to train and learn what we can. Izuku's eyes widen at the thought of getting to go to Island. He even starts into a bit of a fanboy mode at the idea. Which gets a few chuckles from the heroes in the room. When he snaps out of his geek-out mode, the blushes brightly while looking like he wants to SCK his head into his uniform. The head of the Hero Commission then asks what Izuku wanted to do. Noting, we've been talking over you this whole time. But we haven't asked what you think on the matter. Izuku is wide-eyed and looks down at the fact of what they are asking. He looks at his hands and thinks about what he had done and what he could do going forward. With a bit of a sigh, Izuku starts with, all my life I wanted to be a hero like All Might. But after being diagnosed quirkless, it's been a long string of bad days. Especially with everyone telling me that my dream was impossible. The heroes all look down at that and each feel a bit of secondhand guilt at the fact that they haven't helped in that perception. Many of them making it seem more like quirks were the most important thing in the world. Now though, I have a chance to save far more than anyone else. Maybe even more than All Might. I have to at least try. Izuku says while gulping down a bit of his nerves. Inko meanwhile tears up and hugs her son. The general nods before agreeing with his hopes, as do the others in the room. It is then that Nizu steps forward to show transfer paperwork. For Izuku to transfer to the I Academy and their new division. This will be your Hero Academia, young Midoriya. Nizu says with a smile. Izuku and Inko look over the documents before signing off on the matter, including the fact that both of them will be living on the island for a time. With that said, Izuku goes to clean out his desk after classes are done. And while Bakugou starts in to make some intimidating speech again about him being the best, he and the others are floored when they see Best Jeanist come to the class to pick the boy up. "Are you ready, young hero? We need to get you ready for the mission to come," Jeanist says with a veiled smile. Nizu meanwhile had heard the ego that Bakugou had concerning his quirk and potential as a hero. He decides to have Midnight and Eraserhead look into the school and the psych profiles of applicants more. Outside though, everyone at Aldera sees Izuku going with not just Best Jeanist, but 2 other heroes and the head of the Hero Commission. Apparently to become some new hero to fight the monsters that might be coming for them all. At Island, there was one young woman who was looking forward to studying the equipment closely. "Melissa. How long are you going to go over the specs on the drift machine?" "Just a bit more, Papa. It's just so fascinating. The ability to meld or merge minds. I never would have thought something like this was possible." Melissa Shield was happily looking over the apparatus for the pilots in the con pod of Gypsy Breaker. Her father, David Shield, was more focused on the mechanical aspects of the Jaeger. With the man closely looking at the ways to build and mass-produce the equipment necessary for the war they had been warned about. Liking the new tech to play with Doc, the scientist hears from behind him. Walking up was Jason Walker. After he checked in with Domini, he took the fastest flight he could to the island, so he could keep a close eye on the people trying to maintain his machine. It's incredible. From all facets. The software and AI, the hardware and weapons, it's all impressive in a variety of ways. Quirks may be able to do quite a few things, but these machines make them seem pointless. Jason snorts before saying, "Yeah, they probably will be before too long." "Any thoughts on how long it will take you guys to make your own Jaegers?" David hums a bit before noting that they'd have to put aside many other pieces of research to focus on what is to come. "But we might have at least a prototype ready in a few months. Until then though, we'll have to rely on Gypsy here." Jason nods before hoping the new recruits can handle what is to come. He also looks up at Melissa with a slide of his chin, thinking she may be just like Mako Mori on his Earth, the researcher who can fight with the best of them. This could be interesting. Jason thinks before heading to the new section of the Academy. A section built rapidly to accommodate the new groups of people coming from the outside. The Jaeger and Ranger training facility. Later that day, Izuku, his mother, and a handful of others who were quirkless and thus more capable of using the drift technology arrive on the island. Jason and David Shield are the first ones to greet all of the new arrivals to the island, with Jason giving Izuku a wink at seeing the kid willing to be there. "Welcome to Island everyone. I am David Shield. I'm in charge of the development of the Jaegers and other technology to fight the Kaiju. A few of you probably know of me as well. I'm Jason Tamir Walker. While I'm technically only a ranger back in my world, here. Well, I'm your boss and drill instructor going forward. To see if all or any of you have what it takes to become rangers. And to fight against the monsters knocking at your door." Jason says with a stern look to the recruits. He goes on to say that they will each be doing basic training to up their physical capabilities. You will also be sparring with each other to try and find a possible partner for the fights to come. And doing drift practice to also find that. I suggest you all get some rest once you settle your things in the dorms. You start early tomorrow. With that, Walker hands each of the recruits data pads to show each of them where to go. For Inko, David instead offers to show her the way to some more civilian facilities. Izuku though is matched up and set up in a series of 6 rooms with 5 others in his rough age range. Though that range goes from 14 to 19. The next day each of the recruits is put through the ringer by Jason and a few heroes who had quirks that didn't enhance them physically. So they each worked on improving their physical fitness every day. Pick up the pace. Move it. Move it. No slacking off Midoriya. Martinez. Move those weights. When the physical training is done, all of the recruits move on to drift and alignment training, as well as simulations. Izuku is able to handle this better than the rest due to his experience, but he and each of the partners he trains with lose more often than win. Murd. This is harder to deal with than I thought it would be, said Jesus Martinez, an American recruited ranger who was 18 years old after one session training with Izuku. The two were paired together often due to their similar ages, but they still couldn't maintain the alignment for a full battle. The same can be said for many of the rest, with Melissa watching on in curiosity. The training is more than most expected for their first few days. And some feel ready to throw in the towel. But even after Izuku throws up from the exertion he has been pushing through, he refuses to complain or quit. This is enough for some of the older members to shake their heads and try to get back into the work. Thinking to themselves, if that kid can keep pushing through all this, so can I. Between some of the training sessions, Izuku takes some time and talks with Melissa. The two starting up quite a rapport, due to both being influenced by All Might. Jason meanwhile looks on with a bit of curiosity. Samudi helped out when we first drifted, and I've learned to take nothing into the drift. But it might just be a shared interest element. Jesus doesn't have that. Noting what could be the way to break through Izuku's block in his mind. Before having each of the recruits get back to training. While a few start being able to operate in the drift, Izuku still has trouble linking with Jesus. Damn it. What the heck are we doing wrong? Technically speaking, nothing. I don't think you two are that compatible. But I have an idea on someone who is. Jason says while looking over to Melissa at the computer controls. When she finally notices what Jason was talking about, she freaked out a bit. You must be kidding. I'm just a technician. Or at least I'm training to do that. Jason just smiles before saying that the greatest hero of his world started as a technician. Before becoming a pilot and saving the world. Now I think it's your turn. Come on. Let's go. Jason says before pulling Melissa's arm. While she is hesitant, she was curious about the process. And what it could show. So with a gulp, she steps up next to Izuku to try and drift. Jason takes over at the console before counting them down. And starts the drift with the two hero hopefuls. Once in the drift, each sees what the other dealt with due to their quirkless status in this quirk-focused world. With Izuku having to deal with far worse than what she did. Due to the difference between nations, as well as gender. Come on. Don't get caught up in it, Izuku. Don't let the memories hold you down. Jason thinks as the two start in sync then fall out. But then each comes upon a memory that links them. Memories of All Might. And what he inspired and some of the hope he gave during his time as a hero. This is enough for the two to find happier memories. And use those to move out of the rabbit hole their pasts might have pulled them in. Once they gain enough alignment, Jason starts the simulation of a kaiju. And they manage to defeat the first simulated enemy after a few tries. With that, Jason has Melissa reassigned to the Ranger Division. Before talking to Jesus about what he may be doing going forward. A few days after the new Rangers arrive at Island, an announcement is made worldwide. About the threat that is coming for the world, and that those with quirks may have less of a place going forward. From what tech analysis of the soldier said, our quirks may be destroying our minds. Making it to where we have no chance against the monsters that are coming our way. Now we must place our hopes on the quirkless no. On those more human than we may be. As this could be the only way we survive going forward. Was the speech delivered by Nizu himself. The announcement made people around the world panic at the thought. With some from the liberation armies thinking or claiming it was all a hoax or propaganda. But later analysis and testing would show that the results were correct. And that humanity needed to find a way away from the warping mutations that were quirks. In a hidden away location, an old evil is sighing at the blow the fates have dealt. So now quirks are going to be the end of us all. Surely there is a way we can use the quirks you've gathered MSTR to fight these monsters. And become as bad as the monsters who are invading us? No. Not right now. I'm willing to wait. As must you, Tomura. The two oldest bicker a bit before the youngest person in the room is addressed. The blue-haired young man lets out a frustrated sigh but agrees with his MSTR. I can't get revenge on the world if it's destroyed. So, what do we do? Nothing. At least not directly. Doctor, start looking into ways to heal the damage done by quirks. Even if it may cost the quirk itself, the outcome is better than the end of the world. The shadowy MSTR orders before telling Tomura to stay out of trouble for the time being. While the young man still wants to kill All Might, he does see that that would be a moot point if the Kaiju kill everyone. Once the villains meeting is let out, the MSTR leans back with a sigh. To think. The powers I've been accruing over the centuries could be leading us to our downfall. Well, I'm not for it. I rule this world, not some DMN aliens. And if I'm to leave things to Tomura, then I need to make sure the world will live on. Though it could lead to my own downfall if karma and fate really do exist. As the old villain thinks this, and the rest of the world is preparing for the war to come, a breach opens in the ocean. And while no large monsters can come through, a few Category 2s can slip through. And make their way to Island. After finishing another productive session, Melissa and Izuku were relaxing on the benches while watching a few others practice. Man. I thought it was crazy enough when I got a look into the marshal's head. Seeing all the things you've thought up, and applications for hero equipment. It's a whole new level. Izuku said after shaking out of the drift. Melissa smiled before saying, yeah, and all of your analysis has been a big help with some of that. Let alone some ideas for a special project I've been designing. Izuku looked at her funny. As he hadn't noticed anything to deal with a special project in all the times they had drifted together. So he asked his partner what she meant. I'll show you after training is done for the day. Melissa said with a slightly mischievous glint in her eye. With the last session winding down, Walker called all the cadets together for the next session. Meet in one of the auditoriums in 15 minutes. We have a special class today. With a, yes sir, from the group, the Rangers all dispersed to clean after the physical training and drift practice. Each of the members was coming along with their physical fitness. With Izuku noticing that he had gained some definition and strength over the few weeks they had been training on Island. Though he still didn't compare with Jesus, who had been lifting at his school most of his time. There were a few folks who didn't mind that I was quirkless and were friendly. But that didn't mean everyone was looking to be good friends with someone they saw as a step backwards. Jesus explained to Izuku when the two talked about their histories to try and drift properly. Though the American teen wasn't complaining about Izuku finding a new partner. Because now he had moved up a bit. Why do you want me working with you, Chief? I need a partner while Domini is in the hospital. You seem to have a few issues and I can work with them. Least of all, I've learned to carry nothing into the drift. So we'll both work on getting through that block you have, Martinez. Jason explained with a relaxed smile in the young man's direction. Jesus just sighed and agreed with his superior officer as they prepared for a class. All right. I know you all know about the Kaiju. At least as far as what they could do and what their general objective is. Jason says once all of the recruits had gathered up in the auditorium. One of the recruits from Russia raised their hand and explained that the Kaiju were monsters to clear out the local population and accelerate the terraforming for the precursors. Meaning the focus is to kill as many humans as possible and then set off the volcanoes. Duh. Correct. But there are a few other factors that are involved with the categories of Kaiju. Biggest factors come from the size of the creatures in question. Jason then pointed out that the trio that invaded were Category 4 Kaiju. And the categories were based on water displacement, radiation, and BLD toxicity. As far as we found in our battles and then when we attacked their complex in their dimension, they can only get up to Category 5. At least without some insane outer factors to enhance them. With that, the group goes over the details of sizes, power and potential that the Kaiju could unleash. As well as how each ranger must deal with the beasts to keep the toxins from the monsters from severely affecting their world. Noting the danger of Kaiju blue and the other ammonia-based fluids from the creatures. When the class was finished, Melissa asked Izuku to come to her lab for a minute. What for? You'll see. Melissa says before taking the green-haired boy's hand and pulling him along. When they reach her original lab, Izuku is intrigued by the photos and various devices scattered around the lab. Especially one with a young Melissa being held by All Might. He really is like your uncle, huh? Izuku says with a small smile. One Melissa returns before saying that he and her father were her inspirations on being a hero. But you, Izuku says before trailing off at what both of them were thinking of. Melissa closes her eyes before saying, not the kind of hero that Uncle Might is. More of what my papa is. The hero who supports and saves lives with the machines we make. Both look to her awards for development of impressive support items for the hero industry. And that is some of what I wanted to show you today. Follow me. Melissa then leads Izuku into a back room that held a hidden elevator. The two load in and ride down to a hidden sub-level. Where Izuku is shocked to see an almost complete Jaeger in one of the sealed-off hangars. Being worked on by a variety of drones and worker robots. The machine was almost as tall as Gypsy Breaker and had the same build and almost the same stance to the body as the Otherworld Jaeger. The primary colors of the machine seem to be a mix of red and blue. With an unusual V pattern on the top of the head in a gold color. But rather than having the hands slack next to the main body, this version had the fists setting at the waist of machine. This is how long have you been working on this? Izuku asks after recovering from the shock. Melissa just laughs before saying, I wrote up some base plans and schematics when I saw some of the fight you were in. When we received Gypsy, I spent as much time as possible studying its layout and makeup. As well as the control and drift systems. After that, I reprogrammed a bunch of robots to start building this round the clock. Even during some of the early classes when I was just a tech. Melissa then notes that the machine wasn't complete. At least up to the combat capabilities of Gypsy or a standard combat Jaeger. I still haven't installed the weapons or finished tuning the AI we copied off of Samudi. As it stands, it's just a training machine. Like what was it called? Atlas Destroyer, or ones like that. For now, it's just a dream for the future. I was actually planning to offer it to whoever would get assigned to defend Japan. My Titan might. Who's to say that won't still be the case? Only instead of just offering, you'll be piloting it as well. Izuku says before asking if he could check out the con pod. Melissa smiled before agreeing and following him up. The two look over the pawn system and the basic displays that Melissa had designed. Even the experimental power cores that Melissa admitted to borrowing from the US military and NASA. It's just some ideas they had for spacefaring vessels. Never could figure out the last part though. Until I mixed it with some of the schematics from the PPDC. Melissa said with whistle before looking to the side. Izuku is uneasy at hearing that, and then questions whether the machine really was safe. Before Melissa can answer though, the two get an alert that someone is heading for her lab. Melissa then hurries Izuku out of the Jaeger and then quickly into the elevator to avoid the exposure of her secret project. When the two make it back to the main lab, they end up tripping and collapsing on one another. Melissa sitting on top of Izuku's lap. Okay, that was a little rough. Well, that might explain why you two snuck off. Though Melissa, you might want to be careful. He is a few years younger than you. Jason said with a SHT-eating grin on his face. He had been coming over to discuss some matters with monitoring Gypsy Breaker, along with another technical advisor. David Shield. Melissa's father. At seeing the two in their current position, David was giving Izuku a look that could kill. And said boy was well frozen in shock and a bit of fear at what his and his drifting partner's position could entail. No. This. It's not. I mean. I don't Izuku stammered out while Melissa quickly got off of him. She then quickly explained that it wasn't like that. We weren't doing anything like that. I was just showing him some things and well we fell when I realized someone else was here. Yeah, you know that doesn't really explain what this whole scene implies, right? Jason said while still sporting his grin. And a little wag of his eyebrows. One that is lost when Izuku and Melissa both punch him in the stomach. Now did you have something important to ask or were you just here to mess with me? Melissa says with a red face. Mirrored by her partner who looked like a Christmas tree. With a cough and subtle apology, Jason explains that he wants to go over some specs with Melissa. It mostly deals with the AI system and monitoring devices on Gypsy Breaker. It is currently the only active Jaeger we have. And if we are going to mass produce, we need to know everything we can about the systems. Dave tells his daughter before bringing up some of the details they had been sharing and developing with other nations. After giving her father and Jason a slight affirmative, she tells Izuku she'll see him later. Izuku nods before taking that as his cue to quickly slip away. But before he gets away completely, Dave stops him by saying, I'll be having a talk with you later, young man. And I will be discussing this with your mother as well. And Izuku deflates thinking that he's going to be getting an American-style intimidation by the father. And we aren't even a real couple. Or we're just drift partners. But maybe that means we're closer than others. I don't know. Izuku starts in on a mental mumble session on his walk back to the dorms. For the next few days, Izuku can feel Dave keeping an eye on him. Especially outside of the drift sessions he did with Melissa. His mom wasn't much better, as she was quick to try and give him a talk about safe SEC and to be sure of what he wanted. Though she did approve of Melissa as being the first. Which made both teens blush equal to the red on the Titan Might arms for a while. But a decisive moment for the new Rangers before too long. About 4 days after Melissa showed Izuku her personal project, the monitoring sensors scattered across the Pacific Ocean lit up. A small breach had opened. And from it, a group of Category 2 Kaiju slip out. However, this is misinterpreted by the people on duty. What they observe tells them that a Category 4 is on its way to Island. Jason just gives a hug before saying it won't be too much of a problem. Suit up, Martinez. Time to get some real combat experience. Jesus nods to the experienced ranger and they head for the Gypsy Breaker con pod. The rest of the techs prepare to sync the pair for the neural handshake and the fight to come. Walker. Martinez. You two ready? Dave asks from the underwater shattered dome of Island. Good to go. Hagamos esto. The pair say as Dave and Samudi activate the pilot-to-pilot protocols. Jesus needs a moment to shake out of the fuzzy feeling of sharing a mind, but Gypsy Breaker is ready to fight. The techs clear the hangar and the whole section is sealed and then flooded. The doors open to let Gypsy out and the Jaeger starts toward the general direction the Kaiju are coming from. How come we don't have an absolute red? Jason questions while they were in transit. Dave hem-haws a bit before admitting to some slipshod work on the surveillance equipment. It's a little the fault of what our specialties are. This island was made and operates based on making devices for quirks and the hero industry. Most of the folks here and elsewhere have only thought about that, never about the idea of fighting monsters from the deep. Unless they were villains. Jason just lets out a frustrated grunt before telling Jesus, make sure our sonar and other scanning equipment is working at maximum. You got it, Chief. Martinez says before working with Samudi to adjust the scans to account for the water and other effects. And that is when the pair notice something odd with the Kaiju headed their way. This seems highly unusual. The way this Kaiju is moving makes little sense. Samudi reports. One that Jesus agrees with. It looks like it's moving in an undulating path, like a sea snake or something. But there's like gaps along it. And I don't think it's because of hidden fins or claws or hands or whatever. Jason just hums again before hoping to get a look at the beast they are fighting. And the kaiju named Ripper plows towards them after they get a decent look at the beast. It appears to have a head that looks like a mix of an eel and a wolf, with a long thin body. They start to charge to punch the beast in the face to start the fight. But they are quickly surprised by the fact that right as they were punching the initial kaiju, the beast seemed to split apart. And then separate again and again into about 7 smaller kaiju. Each about the size of a category 2. Okay, that is not good. Dave shouts as the screen shows Gypsy Breaker now surrounded by multiple enemy hostiles. While the machine gets knocked around slightly by the fast group of monsters, Jason notes that they don't hit too hard. He's right. We can take these guys. Jesus says with a smile. And the pair take a stance to try and capture/defeat the swarming kaiju. And they quickly get their first kill after avoid 3 strikes. These things always attack the same way. Jason says after catching the tail of one of the smaller rippers. The pair had noticed that 2 of the beast would attack and swarm at the front. And then another would come at them from behind to burrow into the sensitive points. But right as they are killing the first creature, another comes in and hits Gypsy from behind. It knocks the pair down, but before the rest can descend like bottom feeders they activate the jets to propel themselves forward. We can't get caught with our pants down again, man. Let's finish these bestias. Jesus says with a shake of his head. Jason agrees, but then he notices that there are only 3 still there. A pair of kaiju had slipped away and were heading for Island. There's 2 headed your way. We'll get there as soon as possible. Jason shouts, before engaging the rest of the rippers. The plasma blades on the arms drawn. Even if they can finish those creatures quickly, it won't matter. They're already on top of us. Dave says while noting how fast the smaller kaiju were. He activates the island defenses, and evacs all of the sheltered civilians that were still on the island. But, the defenses probably won't last. We don't have another unit. That's not entirely true, Papa. Melissa says with a nervous chuckle. She then turns off the loop she placed on the camera feeds in the hangar where she had been building her Jaeger for weeks. Dave and the rest of the cadets look at her with shock. And while he wants to ask how long she was planning to keep it a secret, he pushes past to focus on the real issue at hand. Is it operational? For the most part, yes. I just haven't started up the special dual power core yet. Dave nods before telling her to hand over the details and controls for the robots building the Jaeger. We need a pair of pilots down there stat. Dave shouts to the rest. Each of the cadets look between each other and most shake their heads. Until they notice that a specific pair were already gone. I think your dad is probably going to kill both of us once this is over. Izuku said as the 2 were already on the way to the con pod. Melissa just lets out a sigh before saying, he can be mad later. The 2 of us have had the best results, and you already have combat experience. Right. But this thing doesn't have any weapons, right? So, we can only engage the creatures with our fists. Melissa gives a quick affirmative before saying it would have to do. As they quickly change into their pilot suits, Dave comes over the comms and tells the 2 to get out of the machine. We can have someone else dash, there's no one else who can pilot this machine, Papa. Izuku and I are the best bet to stop those kaiju from destroying Island. Melissa says while putting on her helmet. When Dave tries to reason with his daughter again, she cuts off the transmission. She then opens a line to Gypsy. Or more specifically, Samudi. Hey Samudi. Think we can do that thing we talked about? Of course. I can upload the base protocols and settings to finish the AI you had started. With a good from Melissa and then a do it, the Gypsy Breaker AI uploads a run duplicate of its functions and capabilities to Titan Might. Once the program is there, it mixes with AI Melissa had started to develop even before she started training to be a ranger. Unfortunately, this causes a slight lag in the actions of Gypsy. Seriously? You do this now? And why didn't you tell me that she had talked to you about doing something like this? Jason asks while dodging Ripper attacks. Samudi just gives an approximation of a shrug before saying, "You never asked." While Jason and Jesus are both cussing out their AI, Titan Might's AI comes into full effect, happily greeting the two of the pilots of the machine. "Hello there," it cheerily says before Izuku says that they don't have time for a lot of introductions. "We've got 2 Category 2 Kaiju out there and we need to take them down." "Understood." Preparing for neural handshake. Izuku and Melissa nod to each other and the process begins. It doesn't take them more than a few seconds and they are in sync. Izuku had taken the right hemisphere, as he had the combat experience. And Melissa knew every inch of the machine she designed and its systems, so she operated the left side. Her first action was to reopen a comm channel to the shattered dome so they could let them out. And the first words she heard were her father cursing about the fact that he couldn't get into the systems to get his little girl out. "I'm not just your little girl. I have a job to do, Papa. And even if it isn't the whole world right now, this island is counting on me and Izuku to stop them." Dave still looks ready to argue, but that is when Izuku speaks up. "Mr. Shield. You know she's right. We have to do this." Izuku says with a straightforward look of determination in his eyes. One that makes Dave flashback to the times where he was partnered with All Might. "Sir. We are here, to stop these monsters. And we will not let them harm this island. While we can still move." Dave tightens his fist and lets out a sigh before saying, "Be careful you two." And with that, he releases the locks on the hangar Titan Might had been stored in. It is flooded from the outside and the 2 rangers in training center themselves for the fight to come. Melissa has the sensors set and calibrated to check for the same signature Gypsy had found before. She then asks the AI to keep looking for those creatures darting around. But she gets a flash and reacts with Izuku to dodge the kaiju that had tried to sneak up on them. "How did you dash instinct after melding with Walker?" "He spent a long time fighting these things," Izuku says with a smirk reminiscent of said instructor. Melissa catches onto his next instinct and the 2 turn as fast as their machine can and catch the Ripper that was rushing them in the jaw. Before it can swim away, Titan catches the tail of the beast and yanks it back towards them. It then lays into the beast where it can, with the pilots enjoying the rush of fighting the monster. But they are caught off guard by the second Ripper and lose their grip on the enemy. CRP. Got carried away there. Izuku shouts as they regain their footing. Melissa agrees and notes how the 2 are moving. It's not like before, where they had 2 distract before the 3rd moves in. This is a different kind of predictable. She then asks the AI who when requested quickly names her Bridget to track the Ripper's movements. Izuku sees what Melissa has in mind and after the AI had found the pattern the 2 work together to interrupt the first Ripper. And then use its movements to send it towards the second. While they are doing that, Gypsy had already killed one of the Rippers by slicing it in half. But since they needed to make sure it wouldn't get away, they waited for a moment to disable both of the enemy's movement. By slicing one along the side and then launching the second blade to impact the enemy trajectory. Once both were disabled, it was a quick matter of using the plasma blades to cauterize and finish off the disabled kaiju. For Titan Might though, they had to improvise up a way to cripple both Rippers at once. And it came at moment where the pair were inspired by Izuku's first fight with the kaiju. Melissa had noticed which creature was moving slower, and Titan grabbed onto the beast by the jaws, before using it to strike the other remaining Ripper. Doing so, accidentally made the free one bite down into its sister kaiju. Before it could let go, Titan grabbed onto its back limbs and tried to break the body with all the strength Melissa had designed in. It was successful, and both Rippers were unable to swim away at any decent speed. "Time to finish this, Melissa," Izuku said. The girl, knowing what he meant, needed a second to gather herself. This wasn't a simulation or anything like that. And they couldn't capture or contain the kaiju. They needed to kill them. Before either could swim too far, Titan grabbed onto one broken and battered ripper. And snapped its neck. As Titan was preparing to finish off the second, the creature decided to give out one last gasp. And dived at the con pod to try and kill the pilots. The beast bit down with enough strength to cause damage to the arm and hand that Titan was holding it off with. Causing a bit of feedback to the pilots. We don't have any weapons. We do. I'll hold it. Finish it, Melissa. Izuku shouted while trying to pull down the injured Category 2. Melissa saw what Izuku had in mind and quickly grabbed the broken body of the first ripper they killed. She then put everything into stabbing its hardened head into the soft neck of the thrashing ripper. With that done, both pilots fell back and tried to catch their breath. Good job. You've won your first battle, Melissa. And it was with a Jaeger made from this world. Jason said as Gypsy walked over to Titan Might. Gypsy held out its hand to help its injured cousin. And Titan was happy to have won its first fight. Back at the Shatter Dome, the cadets and techs were celebrating that they had won the day. And with a machine that we didn't know was here. Looks kinda like All Might. Which age do you think she was inspired by? At least we have another defender for later, is what some of the cadets say as they see the full appearance from Gypsy's cameras. Dave though is just smiling almost whimsically. Again reminded of his days as All Might's partner. And seeing this new giant robot version of his friend, his smile grew even more. Guess you are still inspiring protectors of the world, old friend. And this new form will be just what we need going forward. Dave thinks while some new gears are turning to build another defender of the world. With Titan Might back in the underwater hangar, the two young rangers could decouple and catch their breath. Melissa especially. So that was combat with a kaiju, huh? I think I need to step up adding of the weapons. Izuku chuckles before saying she did well. Now though, we'll probably have some DSPLN thrown our way. Any chance we can avoid that? Melissa says with raised eyebrow. Izuku gives her a look, but he breaks down and both share a laugh. Izuku extends a hand down and helps his partner up. After they exit the con pod, Melissa takes a moment to have the drone start repairs on Titan Might. Once they reach the monitoring room, the young rangers are met with cheers and applause. Well done both of you. You stood your ground and won against the monsters at the door. And now I don't have to be the only one to fight these battles. Jason says with a smirk directed their way. Jesus meanwhile congratulates both of them before saying, I'm glad you found a better partner, amigo. The two of us just weren't that compatible. Izuku shakes his first training partner's hand before saying, you faced off with a lot more of the monsters though. You did a lot more than we did. Before both sides can try building the other up again and again, Dave and Jason catch their attention. You two saved a lot of people and stopped the kaiju. But Dave starts before looking to Jason. He nods before saying, there will be a little disciplinary action for going out without permission and for keeping too quiet on this new machine. First of all, you'll be cleaning both units' con pods. No drones, just your own hands and scrub brushes. Second, Melissa, I want a full report on your machine and what it should be able to do. Izuku, you'll be writing an action report and description of what happened during the fight. Well, what are you waiting for? Get to it. The rest of you, dismissed. Melissa and Izuku groan at the idea of having to write reports after fighting kaiju. While the other cadets groan at end of the celebrating. Until Jason announces that they would have the rest of the day off. No training for the rest of the day. And you two don't have to turn in those reports in right away. Take the evening off. Jason says while walking out of the monitoring room. This gets all the cadets celebrating again, with them all taking the party to the dorms and commons to have fun. Jason meanwhile takes some time to look over the Titan Might, and the application of the weapons on it. Let alone consider where to send the new machine. You're not planning on letting it stay here, are you? Dave asks while knocking on the door to the marshal's office. Nope. And it's not the only one. We've gotten reports from the US, Russia, Australia, China, Canada, and Chile. They've started on a few Jaegers. Most are about half done, but it's at least progress in the right direction. Jason says while looking over the emails from a few world leaders. Dave then questions what the man himself intended to do. If you're planning to make Island the main training ground for future rangers, then wouldn't it be best if you stayed here? I'm thinking that would be for the best, my friend. It shouldn't be too much longer, and Domini will be here. She can instruct as well as pilot with me. Not to mention it would give the Yanks another ranger by sending Jesus to cover the West Coast. Jason says while rubbing his neck. Dave gets a bit of chuckle at Jason worrying about everywhere and one else but himself. You're not so different from Toshinori, pal. You both look to keep others safe before worrying about yourself. Jason just gives the scientist a sideways look before going back to some of the reports. Meanwhile, each of the cadets are celebrating in their own ways. Some dance, others compete in various games, others just drink and enjoy the music. Izuku himself is just enjoying being around everyone and having fun, with Melissa pulling him out to dance at one point. Eventually, they get told to pack up for the night. You still have training tomorrow. Still got to get the rest of you ready for what it means to be a ranger. Jason says with a smirk directed the cadets. A few groans are let out, but most go along with it. With a few more congratulations given to Izuku, Melissa, and Jesus, the cadets turn in for the night. With some getting excited about the idea of piloting their own Jaegers at some point. Over the next 2 months, Melissa and Izuku would refine not just their capabilities as rangers. But the two would work on Titan Might to make sure it would be ready for the fight to come. Adding special weapons and designing other potential attachable equipment for the Jaeger. For Jason and Domini though, there was a different issue. I'm really surprised you could keep this a secret from me. Did your wife know about this? Jason said when Domini came to Island and explained that she had a good reason she couldn't fight for a while. She was pregnant. Domini just chuckles before saying, she somewhat knew. You knew she had tried to carry originally. But we were never successful. Despite all the help you gave. Domini and her wife Sarah had been married before Jason started being her partner. And when the two had attempted to artificially inseminate, Jason had volunteered to be a donor. But they failed 3 separate times. Until I decided to try and see if it would take for me. Turns out it did, but I didn't think we'd get trapped in another world. Domini said with a sideways look to her friend. Jason just sighed before admitting he did have a backup at least. That a little harsh, Chief. You and I have been training enough, right? Yeah, sorry. Didn't mean it that way. I just don't want to deprive this world of its own rangers. Jesus just pats the older man on the shoulder and tells him he has his back. The 2 experienced rangers nod and Domini states that she'd take over the training and drift drills. You focus on being the hero you were meant to be. Jason smiles to his partner and asks her to be careful. For the other ranger cadets, they were each assigned to newly made and set up shatter domes. From Vina del Mar in Chile to Vladivostok in Russia. Though one was special for one pair of rangers. That being Mustafa, Japan, where Izuku, Melissa, and Titan Might were deployed. So this is a homecoming for you. Right, Izuku? Yeah. Wonder how much has changed. Izuku says while stepping off the transport. The two had their dress uniforms as members of the Pan-Pacific Defense Corps. While Inko had considered moving back to Mustafa too, but she ultimately decided to stay at Island. I've been doing a bit as an administrator for the Ranger Training School. I'd like to follow more of this. See what else I can do for kids like you and Melchan. Melissa blushed at that nickname Inko had given her, while Izuku understood what she had in mind. Take care of yourself, Mom. Don't worry about me. I've got the best partner possible. Izuku says after giving his mother a hug. And then looking to Melissa with a smile. "One," the blonde returns. "You sure you didn't want to bring your mother back?" Melissa asks while the two wait for the car to take them to the Shattered Dome. Izuku just tells Melissa that his mom was always taking care of him. She never took time for herself. So if this is what she wants, then I should support it. Melissa just gives him a smile and agrees, as the car pulls up and they head off to their new base. When they arrive, there are a mixture of people gathered outside the base. A fair number are people who are protesting the building and deployment of the Jaegers and Rangers to their home. Others have signs calling the Rangers false heroes, saying that only those with quirks could be heroes. But there are a number who cheer and support the Rangers as they step out and head toward their base. A few wolf whistle at Melissa, which she ignores with an annoyed roll of her eyes. But there are more who are telling the pair good luck in the fight against the Kaiju. Guess this is what it means to be a hero. Izuku says to himself with a little smile. Once they are inside, they meet with the current marshal for the Mustafa base. "It is good to see you again, young Midoriya. And it's quite an honor to meet you as well, Miss Shield." Nizu says with a smile directed the two Rangers' way. The pair salute while Nizu explains why he was the commander for the Shattered Dome. Currently only Walker-san and Sharma-san would qualify as true Ranger commanders. Thus until we can get more Rangers to each of the dome, a tactically minded hero will be acting as the marshal. "Understood, sir. I guess for now we just wait and stay ready," Izuku says with another salute. Nizu nods before asking if Melissa wanted to work on the adjustments to Titan Might. "I would actually. I still need to finalize the conduits for the Carolina cutters. Not to mention calibrating the mumble murmur." Melissa starts before she starts into a mutter spree just like Izuku would do. Nizu is a bit confused, until Izuku explains some of what happened. Side effect of drifting. Aside from knowing our partners very intimately at times, we sometimes trade and pick up mannerisms and patterns from one another, Izuku says with a chuckle. Nizu nods, while wondering what things Izuku had picked up from Melissa. The two head for their quarters, and then take to doing their own set of duties and routines. With Melissa working on Titan Might with a few members of the maintenance team from the UA engineering department. "I can't thank you enough for helping with this power loader, sir. This will shorten the work by days," Melissa says while adjusting the plasma chargers on the arms. The support hero returns the smile and tells he is glad to help. Not to mention getting to work on a Jaeger. Especially one made in our own world. Power loader says while looking over the schematics and diagnostics of the machine. He chuckles while mentioning that one of his first years were looking to make their own Jaeger. And she keeps blowing herself up every time she makes a new weapon idea for it. Melissa gets a laugh at this, and the pair compare their work and the adjustments to making Titan Might the best fighting weapon it can be. Izuku meanwhile had been focused on keeping in shape. He had put on a fair amount of muscle thanks to the Ranger training, but knew he needed to keep up his routine and keep practicing the fighting skills he gleaned from Jason. As well as the combat skills from other teachers. It would be a few weeks before they would have their chance to show what Titan Might could do though. To the protest and complaint of multiple groups from around the world. Especially the Hearts and Minds Party and those associated with Detronet and Dayaka City. Back at Island the alert would come from them first. Detecting multiple breaches. IC3. For no 5 breaches opening across the Pacific. 1 near Japan, 2 near the US, 1 down by South America, and 1 out by New Zealand. Marshal Walker. Your orders, sir. Jason rubs his chin before telling the monitors to send reports to each Shattered Dome. Meanwhile. Jesus. You ready for a fight? Jesus gives his partner a smirk before saying he was ready. Let's get to work, Chief. Jason smiles before ordering the techs to prepare Gypsy Breaker. We'll head for the breach closer to Alaska. It seems to be opening slower than the rest. It was the middle of the night in Mustafa when the call came in. with the alarms ringing out and each member of the crew readying to face the demon at the door. "Hey! Melissa! Wake up! We got a Category 3 coming at us," Izuku said while pounding on Melissa's door. The girl just gave a groan as she opened the door. Unfortunately, she forgot that she was still in her underwear. Izuku yelped while grabbing his nose to keep it from bleeding. "Melissa! Look down." Melissa yawns before saying, "What are you? Oh. Never mind. I see your point." She quickly slams her door and dresses rapidly. When she comes back out, she is fully dressed to combat the kaiju on its way. Izuku was the same and the two young rangers went straight for the con pod of Titan Might. "Is everything ready for combat on Titan, Melissa?" Izuku questions as they were on the elevator up. Melissa nods before saying, "We even got the ammo for the Minnesota barrage. And I already finished a little something to work with the power core." Izuku nods as they arrive at the pod, with a few remaining techs scrambling around to finish prepare for the battle ahead. Izuku. "Melissa. Good morning. Sorry to interrupt your dreams, but we've got a bunch of kaiju on the way out from a breach." Power Loader announces from the monitoring room. Nizu is there as well and informs the pair on the target's heading, capabilities, and size. "We've confirmed it's a Category 3. Pushing up on a Category 4. The creature seems to be a quadruped, with a blade-like tail. Not to mention axe blades on the arms. We've taken to calling it Kazoui, given the appendages," Nizu says while the rangers are getting settled on the platform. The two give a roger as the data is sent to their machine. With the suits hooked up and the neural gel circulating, Brigid could begin the neural handshake. "Get ready," the AI announced happily as she started the syncing process. It didn't take long for the two to get aligned and with a planting of their fist on their hips, they signaled that they were ready. Power Loader confirms and announces, opening bay doors. "Titan Might, you are cleared for combat." And with that Titan Might starts its march out into the Pacific Ocean from Suruga Bay. As they were leaving, a news helicopter had been dispatched and took footage of the Jaeger leaving. With the reporter on scene noting that it seemed like a massive metal version of All Might. There are some differences though. The head doesn't have an actual V-point. But it does have a golden V painted on. Not to mention it has the mix of red and blue for the body. Wonder what this thing can do as the Defender or Japan, the reporter rambles off while the cameras take multiple shots of the massive machine. Titan Might marches out through the bay with PPDC helicopters swarming around to keep an eye out for the target. "What's the word, Marshal? Are we still on the right course?" Melissa questions as they reach the miracle mile for Japan. Nizu reports that Kazoui was still on the projected path. "You should pick up its signal soon. Just be ready." Power Loader announces while looking over the specs and sync rate of the Jaeger and its pilots. Right as Titan Might is marching past the miracle mile, Kazoui burst forth from the surf. It lets out a roar while swiping in front of itself with the axes. Melissa smirks before using Horn of Titan Might to give a counter roar while Titan Might slams a fist into its palm to show it is ready for battle. Both gargantuan opponents seem to be sizing each other up, circling while not letting the other out of their sight. Izuku feels the twinge of his instincts as Kazoui suddenly turns on point and charges at Titan Might. But thanks to that instinctive heads up, the Rangers are ready and easily get inside of the attack and unleash a powerful left straight punch to the Kaiju's face. The blow knocks Kazoui back, and Titan Might starts its follow-up of the attack. They use a few more heavy blows, mostly going with powerful haymaker punches and straights to knock the Kaiju around. But they underestimate the reach and impact of the bladed tail. Kazoui uses its tail to wrap around Titan Might's leg, and then after a blow that knocks it back, the metaphorical rug is pulled out from under the Jaeger. Both Rangers shout as they are knocked on their back before trying to sit up and shake their head. But Kazoui is on them in an instant and using its axe arms, tail, and the claws on the rear limbs to try and tear into the machine. Izuku. Time to use a little might from Minnesota. Melissa shouts while they hold the body of the kaiju away to keep from getting killed. Izuku focuses on holding Kazoui back with his right arm, and Melissa prepare a Minnesota barrage from the left arm. 3 pairs of barrels pop out from the arm and rapidly fires small anti-kaiju missiles from each point. Each impact burrows in slightly, but not enough to get to the more delicate parts of the kaiju. But it is enough to make the monster back off. Alright. I've had enough of this. How's the Carolina/setup, Melissa? Izuku says with a grunt as Titan Might stands. Melissa smirks and reports, it's fully functional. Mr. Mijima's suggestions help to finish the weapon. Izuku returns the smirk with his own and says, let's cut this beast down. The pair then bring up their hands in an X shape in front of them, while locking the joints in place. Then along the knife side of the chop form, a plasma current is run. With a crackle of electricity sparking from it. Kazoui had shaken off the missile hits and was really mad now. It roared again while bringing its tail up to slash at the Jaeger. It charges forward, while swinging its tail like a lasso or WHP above its head. But the Rangers see this as an opportunity. Right as it is swinging the blade around to slash at the con pod, Melissa intercepts the blade with her left, deflecting it upwards, while takes advantage of the momentum to chop straight into the throat of Kazoui. The plasma severs right through the jugular and throat of the monster, even cutting part of the bone from the spine. But to make sure it is truly dead, Melissa follows up with the left knife hand and finishes chopping the head off of the kaiju. The body of the beast falls to the sea before letting out one last twitch, while the head floats for a moment, before sinking into the depths as well. Mustafa. This is shield. The kaiju is down. Repeat. Kaiju is dead. Guess we should start adding kill tallies on the outside. Heading back. Izuku says with a chuckle, as the Rangers march back to the Shatter Dome. Which is celebrating the fact that they have won and stopped the kaiju invasion cold. Nizu nods before saying, well done you two. We'll have to have you report on what happened, but I think we can let you sleep when you get back. The next day, the news would be filled with reports of the battles that took place. And the monsters that were slain by the heroes that were the Rangers. But for Izuku and Melissa, they were proud that they had won another big victory for humanity. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 2. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author HanBaron on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.